The city of Flint, Michigan, once a thriving heart of the American auto industry, had long been in decline. Factories that once roared with machinery now stood silent. The streets whispered stories of better days, and families, many from working-class, predominantly black communities, struggled to make ends meet. Jobs had vanished, hope had thinned, and trust in leadership was wearing dangerously thin. In 2011, Flint's financial troubles reached a boiling point. The state of Michigan declared the city to be in a financial emergency, placing it under the control of a state-appointed emergency manager. This manager had sweeping power, more than the elected mayor and city council. The goal was clear: cut costs, fix the books, no matter what. 3 years later, that cost-cutting mindset led to a pivotal decision. On April 25, 2014, officials flipped the switch, literally. Flint would no longer get its water from the Detroit system that drew from the clear waters of Lake Huron. Instead, it would pull water from the Flint River, a murky, industrial artery long treated as little more than a dumping ground. But the decision was hailed as bold and necessary, a sign of financial independence. A historic moment, one official said. At first, the water came rushing out of the taps with pride, but almost immediately, something felt off. The water looked wrong, smelled wrong, tasted wrong. Still, the government reassured residents everything was fine. But behind the walls of aging homes, something dangerous was beginning to happen. Something silent, something invisible, and it had already begun to poison the city. Flint residents are no strangers to hardship, but the water? That was supposed to be the one thing they could count on. As days turned into weeks, families began noticing disturbing changes. The water turned yellow, brown, even green on some days. It carried a metallic sting to the tongue. Clothes came out of the wash stained. Children developed rashes. Hair fell out in clumps. Yet the officials insisted the water met all federal standards. When residents voiced their fears, they were met with condescension or silence. Experts with titles and clipboards appeared on the news, confidently dismissing the growing unease as paranoia. But behind closed doors, even government workers were refusing to drink the stuff. In fact, at least one state agency quietly installed bottled water coolers for its employees, without ever telling the public why. Then came the boil water advisories. Bacteria had been found in the supply. The city responded by dumping more chlorine into the system, hoping to kill off the contamination. But even that had side effects. Now the water reeked of chemicals. It burned skin. People were getting sick. And then came General Motors. In October 2014, the automaker announced it would stop using Flint's water in its engine plant. It was corroding the parts, eating away at metal. The city responded quickly. General Motors got a different water source. But the people, they were told to keep drinking. No filters, no warnings, no solutions. Because when it came to dollars, engines had more value than children. The whispers were growing louder. The people of Flint were being poisoned, and the ones in power already knew. By early 2016, the damage was undeniable. Blood tests confirmed what many feared. Lead levels in Flint's children had spiked dramatically. Lead, an invisible killer, a neurotoxin. It doesn't just harm, it rewires futures. Learning disabilities, behavioral issues, lifelong setbacks. And there is no cure, no undo button. The city, the state, and the nation began to react. But it was already too late. Michigan's governor declared a state of emergency. Bottled water poured into Flint by the truckload. National Guard troops were deployed, handing out filters and test kits door to door. But residents, already betrayed, met them with guarded eyes. Their children had been drinking poison, washing in it, eating food cooked with it. Now, the same officials who had called them paranoid were begging for forgiveness. Investigations followed, hearings, headlines. The Environmental Protection Agency admitted it had been too slow to act. State officials were accused of negligence. Documents revealed how warnings were ignored and data was twisted to downplay the truth. Criminal charges were filed, resignations followed. But accountability? That came in crumbs. Most of the powerful walked free, reputations slightly bruised, but lives untouched. Meanwhile, in Flint, families were left with bottled water and broken trust. Mothers questioned every fever. Teachers saw the toll in classrooms. And children bore scars no microscope could capture. In a nation of progress and power, one American city had been left behind. Not by accident, but by decision. The headlines had faded. The cameras moved on. But in Flint, the crisis was still pulsing through pipes, homes, and lives. Years after the switch, the water still wasn't fully trusted. Even with new filters and pledges to fix the infrastructure, residents opened their taps with hesitation. Some refused to use it at all, long after the officials claimed it was safe again. Meanwhile, the wheels of justice turned painfully slow. A few public officials were indicted, some for misconduct, others for negligence. A couple of plea deals, a few community service hours, and then silence. One by one, cases were dismissed, delayed, or quietly resolved with no prison time. The message was clear. You can poison a city and walk away. Families, especially the poorest, were left to face the consequences alone. The children most affected, those with rising lead levels in their blood, would need years of special education, therapy, and care. Who would pay for that? Not the ones who made the call, not the ones who looked away. Lawsuits came next. Civil cases, class actions, legal teams battling giants. In 2021, a historic settlement was reached, over $600 million earmarked for victims. But money doesn't reverse brain damage. It doesn't mend broken trust, and it doesn't erase the feeling of being disposable. And still, outside Flint, many believed the crisis had ended. But in Flint, trauma doesn't end with a settlement check. It lingers. In classrooms, in hospitals, in nightstands filled with medication, in bottled water cases stacked like furniture in living rooms. This wasn't just a public health failure. It was a human one, and the damage couldn't be flushed away. Years have passed since the switch. Since the day the water turned brown, the trust went black, and a city was quietly betrayed. Flint still stands. Its people still fight. Community groups have grown stronger, led by mothers who became activists and neighbors who became watchdogs. They educate, test, protest. They refuse to be forgotten. But Flint was never just about Flint. It became a mirror, a reflection of what happens when the powerful treat the poor as numbers in a budget sheet. When a city's worth is measured not in lives, but in savings. When entire communities can scream for help and be met with shrugs. In 2024, the president announced a bold nationwide effort. Replace every lead pipe in America within 10 years. An ambitious step born in part from the ashes of Flint. But promises, Flint has learned, are easy. Action is harder. And healing? That's the hardest of all. The scars remain, not just in the pipes beneath the streets, but in the hearts of its people. Children now grown carry with them invisible wounds, uncertain of what was taken from them before they ever had a chance. And still, the echo of that first decision reverberates, a reminder that the most dangerous contaminant isn't lid, it's indifference. The crisis didn't begin with water, and it won't end with it either. It began with a mindset, a belief that some lives are worth less. And until that changes, Flint is a warning, a quiet American city with a loud message. When the poor pay for the rich's mistake, no one walks away clean.